A promise unfulfilled, yet magical. A magical anecdote long ago told re-entered my conscience as I began to grow old. Wonderfully recounted by the man who gave me birth, the years that have elapsed have only enhanced its worth. Therefore, I pass it along to the next generation of kin, so it will be embraced and held dearly within. Please keep this tale of family pride and lore, but do indeed share it with all forevermore. The story unfolds in the years before World War II and meanders through mazes until it has come down to you. Hence I tell this tale from the only first-hand account. Heretofore it will live like the Sermon on the Mount. I interject. Modesty is not one of my great virtues. My father, a noted journalist, a man with a gift for words, his legacy sings like the songs of the first spring birds. Once upon a time, in the winter of 1939, the United Jewish Appeal honored Albert Einstein. With a testimonial dinner in the city of New York, despite a raging blizzard, my father would attend, even if he had to walk. Before he left that evening, my father was approached by his 6-year-old son, like a player seeking out his coach, with a request that to the boy must have seemed immense. Quote, "Dad," he inquired, "if you see Dr. Einstein, could you please ask him to make some sense of this little equation and the picture that I have included? If anyone knows the solution, it will be from him that the answer is rooted." With that, the little lad handed my father a gift, the thoughts of a young genius upon whose spirits the outcome would lift. Although he made no promises, my father said he would try to talk to the great physicist for the apple of his eye. If by chance he could secure a moment of Dr. Einstein's time, he would certainly show the numbers and ask for a response sublime. The night was raw, the hotel packed in like sardines, as my father sought out to speak to Professor Einstein. Providential intervention smiled on our family that night when my father caught a glimpse of Einstein clearly in his sight. The great relativist was walking from his seat in a line so straight and narrow that he and my dad would meet. Introducing himself as a member of the Fourth Estate, the two men began to converse in a language from their heart, came straight, Yiddish. The language of the plain folk, these two academic giants spoke. Introductions, small talk, and even an idiomatic joke. By the time the conversation began to wane, my father remembered the papers, which now had a small stain. He carefully removed them from the inner pocket of his jacket and asked the noted scientist for a moment more before the oncoming racket. Obligingly curious, Einstein asked what he could do. When my father explained the scenario, Einstein seemed genuinely interested in truth. Examining the papers, Dr. Einstein seemed intrigued. Finally, he looked at my father as if to form an exclusive league, whose two members both were bonded by the thoughts of a 6-year-old boy, one who was dear to my father's heart, the other enraptured in a newfound joy. Quote, "What university does your son attend?" Einstein asked my dad. "My son is but 6 years old," the proud father spoke of the lad. A look of puzzlement engulfed the face of the most brilliant of all 20th century men. But without missing a beat, he invited my father to give a message to my brother sleeping peacefully in our den. Quote, "I would very much like to work with your son when he finishes his schooling someday. Perhaps he could come to my home in Princeton, and we will discuss the events of the nature of ways." That night remained forever in the stories of my dad. It found its way to my world when I was a mere young lad. My brother, perhaps encouraged by the warmth of Einstein's words, grew up to be a brilliant scientist whose lasting contributions has yet been fully heard. In the 1950s, he would speak of working with Einstein. When he graduated in 1953, he thought that this was the time. But he continued working at Columbia University, the second home where he spent all of his life. And in springtime 1955, Dr. Einstein passed away, surrounded by children and his adoring wife. The tale, however, does not abruptly end at this road. Within a year and a half did my brother unload all his worldly possessions, most notably his mind, seeking out the future and universality of mankind. Although he missed Dr. Einstein in the flesh, the two great minds, I'm sure, met in spirit so fresh. For the next 50 years, the 6-year-old lad took joy and contentment in all that he had, not the least of which was a promise unfulfilled and a magical moment more than a half a century ago that could never be killed. As I write down this tale, I am really quite sure that somewhere in the universe are two minds oh so pure, discussing a stained-up paper by that 6-year-old lad and laughing while talking with my oh so proud dad.
That's wonderful.
It's a true story. Amazing, huh? If I had never written another poem, that's the poem.